A very good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. With February known as the month of love and divorce, and with the possibility of financial arguments having a lasting effect on your relationships, I'm joined now by Sydney Sekese, a certified financial planner from the Financial Planning Institute, for a look at 5 financial problems that could kill your relationship. Sydney, good to have you for this very interesting discussion.
Interesting.
It's so often when people think of couples and pairing up, they always think about being compatible, having the same interests, but we never really focus on financial compatibility.
True.
How big a deal is that in the longer term, especially when people start looking at cohabitation and marriage in the long-term view?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. And I think it all starts with, expectations. As you get together, you might have short-term, medium-term and long-term expectation, and we all come from different backgrounds. As we hug and kiss during February, we also should recall that we've got a long-term expectation, both of us. So I think if you've got a proper upbringing from home, and you find that maybe your potential partner has got challenges, when you're still dating, you can pick that up and discuss it very subtly, and again, it will have rewards financially going forward. And again, as partners, we also have got talents and skills. So one partner might be talented in following on expenses and income, and the other might be relaxed. So as we get hugs and kisses, we need to also determine what are our talents in terms of financial savviness or financial management.
Exactly.
And also disclose our pitfalls or our strength.
Before we get there, because I think that's the difficult part for a lot of people, actually admitting to either yourself or your partner that you have a problem when it comes to debt.
True.
But the starting point that also CFPs like yourself always say is budgeting. Start off with a plan.
Yes.
How important is that, and what key considerations need to be taken into place when we decide that, hey, let's put our books together and compare where we need to spend or cut back or look at investments together on?
True. I like to lighten up a bit by looking at the elephant. The elephant is great. It's got, what do you call, memory. Unfortunately, we're not like elephants. So, but we also we all have a brain and a piece of paper. So use a brain, a piece of paper to put down what you earn and what are your expenses, and it will actually assist in curbing some of the unnecessary spending, or spending on unnecessary items. And as a result, the budget helps you to meet all your goals, being medium term, short term, as well as long term.
And I guess it also adds a different element to the relationship, because you see
Very
what
much.
you agree on, what you disagree on as well.
Yes, very much. And again, as you rightfully said, it all boils down to planning and planning together. And also, I mentioned earlier on disclosing, meaning that, gone are the days where when you're in a relationship, a male is the only dominant person, responsible for finances and things. It needs to be an open communication. And as a couple, you need to be involved in financial management of your affairs. And obviously, money matters sometimes can be a challenging aspect to talk about. You can make it easier by really not putting it as difficult as you can, and also discuss during dinner or just before going to sleep. It doesn't have to be a trauma or
a very formal discussion, quite clearly. Hey,
Yes.
not as bad as meeting the parents.
Of course not.
I want to touch on disclosure, because that's a very key element that you
Very
mentioned,
much
because that has a lot of implications in the long term, once again, because depending on what kind of marriage contract you have between yourself and your partner, or cohabitation deals that you have in between the two of you, that can have a dire impact, because his debt can become mine, and vice versa.
Yes. I think as the relationship proceeds, you obviously will start with very casual conversation around money, and obviously you'll monitor your partner's pattern of spending, and if you see some irregularity, do not leave it for late. Discuss it while there's time. And do not accuse your partner of, of mismanagement, Just be subtle about it, because if you accuse them, you might be applying for separation just before.
And that's a sensitive thing, because people's response is, this is my money, I'll spend it the way that I want to. So who are you to tell me? Hey?
True, eh? Obviously, with the relationship, your aim is to have a long-term sustainable relationship. And obviously, when you discuss issues like this, you just sit down with your loved one and say, honey, what is your view of the future? Can we dream together? So I think discussing dreams and assessing whether you've got a common dream, common goals, it will go a long way in easy disclosure. Because, you can't just say, disclose what your income is.
Exactly.
Yeah, just say, what's your view about our relationship going forward in terms of financial well-being? Do you foresee us sharing debt together? What has been your history in terms of asset accumulation? Do you want us to share the assets going forward? Very subtly tap into that. Don't be blunt and say, well, how much do you earn?
Sydney, to pick up on the issue of disclosure, is it very necessary to have certain things in writing then, if you have an agreement or disagreement with your partner around your asset allocation, your investment strategy, as well as the spending and savings habits? Does a contract necessarily need to be put into place? Will that protect either of you from any pitfalls?
Yes, I think it depends on the timeline. How long have you known each other, and also the timing of putting that into writing. But putting that in writing, it really is a helpful and prudent way of ensuring that there are no misunderstandings. And again, if you put it in writing, there's less risk of financial infidelity. Where a partner,
that's a nice word. Financial infidelity.
Yes. It happens, eh? But sometimes it's not done to be malicious. Valentine's Day is approaching. You may want to surprise your partner with some gifts.
Tell us about that, because my idea of a gift might not be a nice red fancy car, but that might be something that my partner wants to buy, and I might be upset about the quantity of that kind of transaction. The size of it is just a bit too large to do without a consultation. True.
And that's where infidelity comes through, where there was an agreement put in place to say, this is our budget, and if there's any surplus, this is how we're going to use it. And suddenly you bring roses and you bring some chocolate and expensive shoes, I know, for ladies.
I don't mind.
Yes, but then the partner might say, where did you get this money? They might accept the gift, but deep inside they might feel there's some trust issues there. Suddenly, you're spoiling them, and whereas the past 2 months there's been some struggle in terms of financial well-being. So I think if you put something in writing, firstly it improves on trust, and again, going back to that terminology, it avoids infidelity, and can easily explain why you have expended on a particular item. And that putting that in writing also ensures that maybe after every 6-12 months, you can review how far you are in terms of your goals, your dreams, because now you're joined, or as you cohabit, or as you get married, you almost are joined, and you need to do things jointly, and putting it in writing really helps to curb that kind of rough management.
Exactly.
Yes.
Some say that divide and conquer might be part of the best strategy, where you just have an agreement in place that you look after certain aspects of our finances, I look after these, and that's where we leave it. If you fail to meet these responsibilities, then you need to be held accountable. Does that not necessarily work, depending on the financial personalities then of the two partners involved?
Yes. Yeah, it's a sound way of really being responsible as a couple. And a prudent one would be to say, the one partner earns 6,000 rands a month, the other earns 4,000. So which means you may create a budget where the expenses are 60%, 40% shared between whoever brings the larger or the lesser income.
Using that way.
Using that. And then you'd create 3 accounts. One account for him, one account for her, and the other account for a joint account. And in that joint account, you may want to use it to save for a holiday or for a brand new car, or to improve the surroundings of your home or wherever you're situated, you know. And instead of sometimes, you know, again, trying to please your partner, you might find the other partner bring a brand new car.
Exactly.
And then you'd wonder where does the money come from? But if you have those 3 accounts, then you can account for that spending. You know.
So the devil's in the details.
Very much so. Yeah, and it helps to have a structured way of dealing with income, expenditure, and also expectation, and who does what part of expenses. Obviously, casual outings like going out for dinner, it shouldn't be as strict as huge purchases like a house or a car. You know, you can decide who's going to look after expenses this month or next month. You can alternate.
Okay, so have a discussion and quite clearly have the details set out there. Sydney, before we start wrapping up, for those individuals who still want to maintain some kind of independence, obviously for credit record purposes, or just because they feel that they need a buffer, is it always okay to have your own little savings stash somewhere that your partner doesn't know about?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to trust, and as long as the intentions are good, as long as that saving is going to be used for good use, instead of infidelity outside of marriage. Instead of financial infidelity, you do another infidelity.
Exactly.
You know? So as long as that savings is for good use and for the benefit of both of you, then I think you can stash that aside. And again, I regard financial planning as easy 1, 2, 3.
Tell us about those 3 steps, yes.
1, the one that we discussed, budgeting. And secondly, reducing debt. Thirdly, having an emergency fund. It's very crucial. An emergency fund, you can define emergency fund in many ways. Sometimes your car breaks down, your geyser bursts, and you've got to pay an excess on your insurance. So the emergency fund will go a long way in solving short-term mishaps. And again, emergency fund can be any, obviously when you create a savings account or savings or investment account, you need to have a reason why you create that. So the first step is to create an emergency fund. So have a plan in place to say over the next 12 to 24 months, I want to create an emergency fund equivalent to 3 to 6 times my earnings. And you have a goal in mind instead of just purchasing an investment just for purchasing investment. So you might say, this year, I want to create an emergency fund.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if those are easy 1, 2, 3 steps.
Exactly. So start with a plan, have that discussion, and set a goal in mind clearly, and also reduce debt. That's something that a lot of South Africans need to focus on. Sydney, thank you so much for your time today and for teaching us to avoid financial infidelity. Thanks. Well, that's it for Personal Finance this evening. Thank you so much to Sydney Sekese, Certified Financial Planner from the Financial Planning Institute. Remember that we'd love to hear from you, and you can tweet any of your questions or comments to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410 or to myself @Gukumfupi on Twitter. Until next time, it's goodbye for now.